What's up, guys? My name is Jadicut5 and welcome to the review of Chelsea versus Crystal Palace, where it ended up a 1-1 draw. Before we do get into this video, it'd be much appreciated to, if you haven't done so already, to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to hit that notification button so you never miss a video. Final score then, Chelsea 1, Crystal Palace 1. Nicholas Jackson opened up the scoring in the 25th minute after a counter-attacking play from Noni Madueke onto Cole Palmer, and then straight on to Nicholas Jackson was a straight tap-in across goal. And then Crystal Palace opened up their own scoring in the 53rd minute after a bright start in the second half. The ball fell out onto the outside of the area and a decent hit from Eberechi Eze found themselves draw level, and that was that for this particular fixture. What can I say? First half was really positive. It took us a little bit to get into it, I would say. Tried to create as much as we possibly could, and we looked good in terms of actually going forward when we were able to do so. And then luckily we were able to take our chance in the 25th minute. We did have a few other chances where we could have kind of done better for ourselves, and we seemed to be, if we could have actually gone in at 2-0 up, to be honest, I think that would have been a fair reflection. Crystal Palace didn't really create anything in the first half, just allowing themselves to absorb the pressure and see what they could do in that moment in time, but they probably did well to have it where it was only 1-0 in that point in time. Second half was a complete different story, and this is where the massive downfall did happen for Chelsea. Just simply not good enough in the second half. Didn't come out of the dressing room in the right attitude whatsoever, because it seems to be everything we did in the first half we couldn't do in the second. Too slow, too lethargic, no idea what we were doing. This whole system itself just isn't working, in my opinion. Inverted wing backs do not work in our system whatsoever because they are not used to playing in that position. Cucurella displayed it last season, but in all fairness, his actual kind of all-time game today was absolutely dreadful. Second to every ball, didn't able to be able to kind of go to his man, or when he did actually go, he seemed to go too far forward, allowing the ball to loop over his head and go on an attacking play where Levi Colwill or Wesley Fofana had to scoop over. We created enough chances to be able to finish the game off, and there were some bright sparks about our game, but there was too many negative points, and hence the result, in all fairness. But the goal was definitely coming for Crystal Palace. We allowed too much pressure, didn't really take the time to be able to kind of come out the second half and just make a straight performance. Instead, we just sat on things and we thought we had the result in the bag. But that is never the case when you are 1-0 up. And I think that is going to be the story of our season this season. No consistency, no taking our chances whatsoever. And if you don't take our chances in that moment, we will never get the results that we need in this particular season. And I think it's going to be a long old season if this is going to be the case. And it could be a bit of a harsh reflection in some ways, because when you look at it, we probably were the better team to some regard. But again, it doesn't matter about being the better team. It doesn't matter about having possession, passes, shots, whatever it is. If you can't put the ball in the back of the net, then no one cares. And that is a simple thing. And yes, Maresca has got to do a lot, and yes, Maresca has still got a plan. Yes, Maresca hasn't had a lot of time, so on. And there's no saying that there's call for any sort of manager appointment, because that is not the case. The case is we are not playing good football. We are playing boring football, absolutely tame football. We play against Wolves, we score 6 goals. Today, if you gave us another 4 days, it wouldn't even look like we score a second. It just wasn't happening whatsoever for whatever reason. I mean, I thought after playing against Servette and having such an amount of change that maybe we'll have a bit more kind of consistency about ourselves and kind of go on the back burner and do something in this result, because it could have definitely benefited our long-term season, that's for sure, with other teams around us dropping points also. But as usual, we never take advantage of that. And a lot of things do need to improve. I'm not saying that the squad isn't good enough to any regard. I just feel like it's a system in place that just doesn't seem to work in its favour whatsoever. There's very key moments about our game that you can really show that we play together as a team, and then we can play for another 20 minutes where we just don't seem to know how to play football. And that's the consistency around it, and that's the problem that we're having as a squad as of the moment. Crystal Palace set out to do a job, and they did it. They came for a point, and they got the point. And if in all fairness, if we did play a better team, then I reckon it would have been much worse. Obviously, I mentioned that obviously statistic-wise, it wasn't really a massive fuss, but when you actually look at it, it is very collective to see the differences and so on, and how it's going to be the case of, yeah, it did look statistically that we actually did kind of do well, in all fairness. 63 possession compared to 37 possession at Palace, 13 shots, 9 shots, are fairly fair, 7 on target, but many passes more. But the thing that actually got me more than anything is we had 4 clear-cut chances. That is crazy to say. The referee was an absolute joke today, may I add. I'm not one to normally blame it on referees, and I'm not saying if we had a better referee today that it would have been any different, but it's the case of he just didn't seem to want to give anything to us. It was one wall for one for another. Firstly, Will Hughes should have been off the pitch. There's no way that he should have ever been on the pitch. If you look at that second yellow for Declan Rice in yesterday's game, there's no difference compared to today's if that was to be Will Hughes. There was just no consistency from the ref. It was just absolutely abysmal. Didn't know what he was doing whatsoever, in all fairness. If he put a yellow shirt on, they would have had 12 men. It was simple as that. It was just, really, really poor. I don't know where we go from here as a team, because we've got a tough game against Bournemouth. Obviously, we've got a little bit of a kind of break now until we do play against Bournemouth, and there's going to be a lot of work needed to be done to be able to get to some sort of level, and it's not going to be good enough saying, oh, we were the better team, we were this. We need to be able to prove a point, and we need to be able to do something with it. But let's get into the player ratings, and I'll talk about every player individually. This is a system that Enzo Maresca did have in place, his favoured 4-2-3-1 formation. Sanchez in goal, Cucurella, Fofana, Colwill and Gusto made up the back four, with Enzo and Caicedo partnering as defensive partners in the middle there, with Neto on the left, Noni Madueke on the right hand side, Palmer in the middle in the 10 and Jackson up front. Basing it from the ratings from the goalkeeper to striker, we will start with Robert Sanchez. His distribution was much better today, I thought. There's been times where he has made, and he did display that in the first half, a poor pass. But he just gets put under so much pressure, and I'm just not a fan of going back to the keeper and having the distribution. I just don't feel like it works overall compared to doing it another way. I'll give him a 6.3, fairly liable for the goal in some ways. I feel like he could have done much better in my opinion. Had made a few good saves, but nothing special. I can't really be too critical of Sanchez, because I don't think he was the one of the bad players out of the bunch that we did have as a team. Cucurella on the left-hand side, 5.0, absolutely just abysmal from Cucurella. His passing, his defending, everything was off. Ever since them Euros, and ever since kind of giving it the big one, he's just not really lived up to it whatsoever. And it's fairly embarrassing only for his side. He gets booed every game now. It's just pathetic. Cucurella 5.0, lost his man on every single run, second to every ball, didn't win any header, couldn't even beat a header from Nathaniel Klein that is smaller than him. It was just boring, to be honest, from Cucurella. I won't go into any more detail. Malo Gusto 5.6, got injured in the game. I hope he's alright to a degree, because he is a good player, but in another sense he was again really, really poor. Nothing really to do on that right hand side. He doesn't suit that inverted role whatsoever. If it's that's his fault, I'm not too sure, but he just doesn't work. The system just doesn't work. There's moments where Caicedo, Fofana and Colwill will act as a back three, with then Cucurella and Gusto in the middle for yourselves to lose the ball, and you can have so many Crystal Palace players and you've only got like 2 to 3 defenders. It just doesn't work. But brighter points were Fofana and Colwill, 7.0 for Fofana, Colwill 6.7. Fofana was a bright spark in a bad bunch today, in all honesty. Really well, really direct, picked the ball up many of the times and drove forward to be able to see if he can create a bit of play for himself. Really strong in the tackles, really direct in the same time, won every header, won every tackle, really, really solid. And he did cop a big knock at the same time, and he still was able to continue. So hopefully that won't affect his season too much. Bearing in mind he has got international duty with France now, so hopefully he can keep up the pace after that long-term injury. Levi Colwill made some very good tackles, it has to be said, really solid. A few bad passes here and there, but nothing really special, but nothing really bad. Enzo Fernandez, 6.6 rating. He had a bit of a knock near to the end of the game there, where he hurt his jaw. It was one of those where it was he definitely put his body on the line in that way, so fair play to Enzo, but his passing does need to sharpen up in that centre mid role. I felt like he was decent in some ways in being able to kind of go forward and so on, and being able to kind of being a bit attacking and kind of winning the ball off of many players, but unfortunately just didn't really seem to come together as a collective group for Enzo. Caicedo was a much better player, 6.8 I'd give Caicedo. I could have probably gone much higher, in all honesty. It's probably a bit of a harsh reflection on his game. He absolutely bossed the middle. There was nothing that Caicedo did wrong. He really got involved today, and even when he had to get shifted onto the right hand side, he really good. I'm not a fan of him dropping in the centre-back role. I feel like that kind of impairs the actual kind of support that he can give in the middle compared to being in that position. But we shall see in the future with the changes that he makes and so on. Pedro Neto starts on the left-hand side, 5.2 rating. He was really, really poor. Just didn't get himself into the game. There was a few collective moments where he got on the ball and he would look dangerous, but nothing really special, I have to say, from Pedro Neto, and could have improved much, much more. Noni Madueke, he had a good moment involving with the goal, but apart from that, I can only give him a 6.4 rating. Just nothing really special from Noni today. Lost the ball many times. He was on his own a lot of the time, and probably not his fault to some regard. Probably a bit of a harsh reflectment on his game, but in the same time, it just didn't really seem to do much for me to really shout about his game, especially after having such a good performance against Wolverhampton. Cole Palmer, 7.0 rating. He tried his absolute hardest today to be able to get anything out of this particular game. Every time he wanted the ball, he dropped back. He allowed himself to be able to go on the ball on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side. Anything he could do, he tried to do. And that's a fair reflection in Cole Palmer's kind of just as a player itself. He's just phenomenal. There's no denying that whatsoever. Had a few chances on goal himself. Had a free kick denied in the second half also. But yeah, he did play fairly well in my opinion. Nicholas Jackson, obviously with the only Chelsea goal scorer, 6.8. He's obviously signed a new contract that sees him at the club at 2033. And hopefully it continues in some way because he does look good. Was unlucky in the second half not to get a second either, and he was running a lot today, to be honest, and I'm normally quite harsh on Jackson to some regard. But he did try his hardest, and that was a fair goal. Unfortunately, if he took his other chances, you would probably be seeing a larger rating. But it is not to be on this occasion. Enzo Maresca made 3 changes: Mykhailo Mudryk, João Felix and Christopher Nkunku. I will say on the substitutions itself, it was a bit too little too late for Christopher Nkunku. Couldn't really make much of an impact. Even the minutes that he did have on the pitch with the 8 additional, bearing in mind he came on the 86th minute, he looked fairly sharp, it has to be said. João Felix struggled to get in the game. There was a few moments where he looked to be able to see if he can get himself on the ball and beat a few players on the ball, but just seemed to really struggle in that moment. I thought Mykhailo Mudryk was quite bright on the left-hand side, managed to be able to get a few direct balls into the area and actually create something. So it was interesting to see that he made a fair kind of decent performance with the minutes that he did have, bearing in mind he played not long at all, coming on from the 74th minute. It's a lesson learned for Chelsea. It's a big process. Don't get me wrong. I don't think we played bad, but I don't think we played good, and that's the stupid thing about it. And as I say, it doesn't matter playing better. It doesn't matter having this, having that. If you don't put the goals in the back of the net, then it doesn't mean absolute nothing. And that is the harsh reflection and the Premier League and so on, because that is it. It just can't do anything without taking your chances. But hopefully we go again. We've got Bournemouth in a couple of weeks' time. That's going to be very tough. They're going to be playing their second goalkeeper because Kepa Arrizabalaga is obviously on loan at Bournemouth, so they will have Travers in goal. Whether that's going to do anything for us, I'm not too sure, but we really, really need to get a result against Bournemouth. Otherwise, it's going to be looking a pretty bleak season, and then we're going to find it where we're coming against much better teams and then proper struggling, because these sort of games we should be picking up points, and if we're not, then that's just a reflection on the season that we're already going to have. But that is it for this particular review. Hopefully we can be a bit more positive going to the preview and review of the Bournemouth game, but that will be until a couple of weeks' time as we have international duty. But this is it for this particular video. I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. Please like and subscribe for more content, and don't forget to hit that notification button so you never miss a video. Cheers.